this is our special education process presentation by Ashlyn, Annette, Kayla, and Teresa. Our topics were evaluation and determining eligibility and eligibility criteria, and I would say these two topics really intertwine within each other. So an overview of evaluation. So the purpose of it is just to determine whether a student has a disability and needs special education services, and then it also helps identify students' strengths, challenges, and specific learning needs before they get any special education services. And in evaluation, this is a multi-step process after a referral happens, but before the student actually gets services. This is just determining if the child does have a disability and reviewing their existing data about the child, whether that comes from the teacher or the parents, and then if the student is approved for everything to this point, the final step of the evaluation process is letting their parents know and having them consent in a written form to continue the process. And then after that starts the eligibility and eligibility criteria process. In many states, the eligibility of a child for special education and other services are really considered when the child arrives at Tier 3 level of the RTI. But if a child has been in Tier 2 for an extended amount of time, then another evaluation is given to them to determine if they're eligible for services. And then if the student is eligible after taking many different assessments that really looks at if they need services in all types of learning areas, then a meeting will be held with a specific team to help determine what specific services the student will need. And then after determining if the student is eligible or not, the hope is to get consent from parents to develop an IEP within 30 days and provide that same information to parents. For specific guidelines for evaluation, evaluation and eligibility were really similar when it comes to parental consent, following the timeline that the state gives you, making sure there is multiple assessment tools during the evaluation and eligibility process, and making sure that there's a team that knows the student well enough to make informed decisions, and then making sure that the student really qualifies for services under the IDEA Act or law, and then showing for the eligibility process specifically that their disability affects their educational performance, and then reevaluating the child when necessary.
I'm going to start with the key terms for evaluation. Initial evaluation is the initial thorough evaluation to determine whether a child has a disability. Reevaluation is unless parents in the school believe it's unnecessary, a child needs to be reassessed at least every 3 years. Parental consent is before doing any type of evaluation. Schools must get the parents' written informed consent. Comprehensive evaluation is a child's academic, cognitive, behavioral, social, emotional, and functional performance must be evaluated. Multiple sources of data means to provide a comprehensive assessment. Instead of just doing one test, they do multiple. Non-discriminatory testing is evaluations must be culturally and linguistically appropriate and conducted in the child's mother tongue. The second part is an eligibility report. It's a formal document outlining the evaluation conclusions of a student. Independent educational evaluation. Parents have the right to request an IEE at public expense if they don't agree with what the school's evaluation is. And the evaluation summary report, it's the evaluation results, team interpretations, and eligibility/service recommendations are compiled in this report. The key terms for eligibility: parental consent. Once again, before doing any type of assessment, the school needs the parents' written informed consent. Evaluation is a procedure that collects data on a child's behavioral, developmental, academic, and functional performance. IDEA is a federal law that ensures qualified children with disabilities between the ages of 3 and 21 get special education services. Child Find is schools required by law under IDEA to identify, locate, and assess every child with a disability. Multidisciplinary Team is a group of trained experts that evaluate and decide if a child qualifies for benefits of special ed. And then part 2, 13 disability categories. The 13 categories are listed under IDEA for which a student may be eligible. Adverse educational impact. A disability must have a negative effect on a child's academic performance in the general curriculum to qualify. Eligibility determination meeting. It follows the evaluation and is a formal meeting to decide if a child is eligible. Prior written notice. Parents receive a document from the school outlining the choices made about their child's eligibility. An IEP is an individualized education plan, and the school has 30 calendar days to create an IEP if the child is determined to be qualified. It lists the child's services, accommodations, and educational goals. And lastly, a referral is an official request to have a child evaluated to see if they have a disability.
Other pertinent information and roles of those involved within the evaluation and eligibility aspect of the special education process. Besides the student themselves, one of the most important characters in this part of the process are the parents and guardians. Now, the parents and guardians are pretty vital to this aspect because their consent is required before any evaluation can even be done of their child. If they do not consent for their child to be evaluated, then none of the process occurs, and the student typically stays within whatever courses they are currently taking, so typically within their general education classrooms. Now, if the parent or guardian does give their permission, then a team is made up of the general education teacher, the special education teacher, an administrator, the school nurse or psychologist, as well as other supports. And the parent and guardian is typically involved within their first meeting together. Now, at this meeting, the general education teacher is typically there to provide their insights on how the child is performing academically as well as behaviorally within their classroom, as well as how they are developing cognitively, socially, and emotionally, and academically in the course. Their job is also to provide how the child or student is responding to those general education interventions and whether or not their suspected disability is affecting their completion of general education curriculum. Now, the special education teacher or the specialist is there to assist in identifying areas of the suspected disability, as well as to later help interpret evaluation data that is provided by the assessments. The school psychologist or nurse is there to typically conduct the cognitive, behavioral, as well as academic assessments that are done for the students, and other supports typically refers to other specialists within the school, such as the speech language pathologist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, and those are referring to any other specialists that the team decide to bring in to conduct their own tests to the child to assess for any other disability that is suspected of the child. Now, after all of these assessments take place, as well as they're explained to the parents and guardians what's happening, after all the assessments to occur, after about 60 days is when the results will come back from all those assessments, and the team will meet back up to evaluate those results and determine whether or not the child meets the criteria for each of their suspected disabilities. And if the child meets the criteria, then all of those involved will work together to create an IEP plan for the child and determine what services they are eligible for and what services and supports that the school is going to provide for their child moving forward.
Here is some other information for evaluation and determining eligibility and eligibility criteria. So this specific slide is about the roles of team members. So the first role is parents and guardians. They must be included and heard in this process. Another role is general education teachers. So they provide academic performance data and insight on the whole process. And then another one is school psychologists. They share the evaluation results and assessments.
and administrator and or representatives just ensure the services and supports are available. Continuing on for other information, this is part of the legal considerations. So discrimination is not allowed in this process, so that means it is based on the disability and need, not the race, language, or background, etc. The team must follow our FERPA and confidentiality laws when discussing the student, so not mentioning anything too specific. And then parents have the right to disagree with the eligibility decision and request an independent educational evaluation, or also known as the IEE. Determining eligibility and criteria is one of the most crucial parts of the special education process. It ensures that the students who truly need extra support get it, while also protecting the rights of all students and their families as well. This step must be legal, data-informed, and team-based. Thank you.